Day. I'm Pastor Maureen Howard, and I am the pastor of Emmanuel Lutheran Church in Washington, Iowa, and I greet you today with great joy. How are you? How was your day yesterday? Did you sing a beautiful song to God yesterday as we sat in the choir room and we saw drums and some maracas and the piano? Well, today I thought, why don't we meet in our choir loft where the choir comes and sings? It's up in the balcony of the sanctuary. And so let me step aside and let me show you where the choir sits. So here we are, we're in the loft, and here are the pews where all the choir members sit, both the adult choir and the children's choir. And the paintings that are behind me were made by an artist of our congregation, Kathleen Almeline, and they are various paintings of the seasons of the church. Now, let me show you how high we are. Let's take a peek over the balcony so you can see the sanctuary. Wow, can you see the sanctuary? Do you see how high we are, and all of the pews that are filled on Sunday morning with people who come to give God thanks and praise? And do you notice how our windows are covered? We only have 2 windows left that need to be covered because we're now only a week away from Palm Sunday. Well, I welcome you again. Let me put you down, and we'll get to our story for today. I am reading from the Jesus Storybook Bible, and it's written by Sally Lloyd Jones, and it's illustrated by Yago. And here we go. Well, the story that we're on today is called The Girl No One Wanted. And it's the story of Jacob, Rachel, and Leah, and it's from the book of Genesis, chapters 29 and 30. All right, are you ready? Are you on laps and couches? All right, here we go. There once was 2 sisters. The youngest sister was very beautiful, and her name was Rachel. But the oldest sister wasn't beautiful at all. Some thought her quite ugly, and her name was Leah. Rachel was the kind of girl who always gets invited to parties and chosen for the team. Everyone loved her. And poor Leah, no one hardly even noticed her. One day their cousin Jacob came to stay. He was one of Isaac's sons, and he was on the run. Jacob had stolen and cheated and made some enemies, including his own brother. And now he was hiding. The funny thing is, Jacob, of all people, was the one God gave the special promise to, the same promise he had given his grandfather, Abraham. I will rescue the world through your family. But then God chooses people we least expect, as we'll see. Jacob stayed a long time working for his uncle Laban. One day Laban said, "Jacob, I've decided to pay you for your work. What do you want?" A sudden thought struck him. How about one of my daughters? And so here we have a picture of beautiful Rachel and not so beautiful Leah. And if you can see here, we've got a picture of Jacob and Leah, and they're quite smitten by each other. Look at them talking there. And if you look way over there, there's poor Leah having to tend to the sheep all by herself while Jacob and Rachel talk. Jacob looked at Rachel and he looked at Leah. Who would he choose? Of course he chose Rachel. I'll work 7 years for free, Jacob said, if I can marry Rachel. So Jacob worked 7 years, and at last his wedding day arrived. But that night, Laban played a nasty trick on Jacob. Instead of sending Rachel to marry Jacob, he sent Leah. Now, in those days, they didn't have electricity, so it was dark in their tent. And besides, women wore veils, and you couldn't see their faces properly. So Jacob suspected nothing. The next morning, Jacob woke up and screamed. His new wife was lying beside him, but it wasn't Rachel. It was Leah. Jacob jumped out of bed. Laban, he cried, you scoundrel. But Laban said, work for me another 7 years, and then you can marry Rachel. So Jacob worked for Laban another 7 years, and at last, Rachel became his wife. Now Jacob had 2 wives, but of his 2 wives, Jacob loved Rachel the best. And so here we see Rachel, Jacob, and Leah. And he can't tell which one is which because their faces are covered. And look at this face. That is not a happy face. That's the face that Jacob must have made when he screamed, Laban, you scoundrel, when he realized that he wasn't sleeping with Rachel, but he was sleeping with Leah, the one he had just married. No one loves me, Leah said. I'm too ugly. But God didn't think she was ugly. And when he saw that Leah was not loved and that no one wanted her, God chose her to love her specially, to give her a very important job. One day, God was going to rescue the whole world through Leah's family. Now, when Leah knew that God loved her, in her heart, suddenly it didn't matter anymore whether her husband loved her the best or if she was the prettiest. Someone had chosen her. Someone did love her with a never stopping, never giving up, unbreaking, always and forever love. So when Leah had a baby boy, she called him Judah, which means, this time I will praise the Lord. And that's just what she did. And you'll never guess what job God gave Leah. You see, when God looked at Leah, he saw a princess. And sure enough, that's exactly what she became. One of Leah's children's children would be a prince, the Prince of Heaven, God's son. This prince would love God's people. They wouldn't need to be beautiful for him to love them. He would love them with all of his heart, and they would be beautiful because he loved them like Leah. And so here we have a picture of Leah. Can you see Leah holding a baby in her hands? And all of the children that are following her. And Leah is beautiful in the sight of God. Sometimes we too look at ourselves in the mirror and we don't think we're very pretty. Sometimes we might say, oh, we too are ugly, just like Leah said. But you know what? I have the truth for you. You are beautiful. You are gorgeous because God created you. And you know what? God does not make anything ugly. God, with his own hands, created you. And when God made you, he looked at you and said, oh, you are gorgeous. You are precious and you are beautiful. And there's nobody like you. Now, even if you're a twin or you're a triplet, you are an individual. You are unique. And God has made you perfect. And so when you look in a mirror, don't say you're ugly. Look in the mirror, stand up tall and say, I am beautiful. Now, if you're a guy, a boy, you look in the mirror and you say, I am handsome because I am created in God's image. And so, children of God, you are deeply loved. And so, Michelle, Gary, Kathy, Scott, Viv, Amanda, Peter, Sandy, Fran, and Clyde, and Dale, and Judy, you are beautiful. And God says to you, I love you. And if your name is Leah, Rachel, Jacob, God says, I love you. And maybe your name is Judah. God says, I love you. And so, children of God, know this day and all days, you are precious, you are treasured, you are handsome, and you are beautiful. God says, I love you. And so have a wonderful day today, knowing that you are loved by God. Have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Bye-bye, everybody.